Welcome on this lecture about prehistoric India, where today we will discuss about the history of India through the Stone Ages. Okay, so let us start. So, as we would all know, we usually divide the historical period into three distinct phases based on the sources. So, the furthest period we usually name it as the prehistoric phase, which we are going to study today. Now, what is the basic feature of this phase? No written evidence. No written evidence. We solely have to rely on the archaeological and paleographical evidences. Archaeological and paleographical, paleontological. Paleography or paleontology, you basically know these things. These are the fossils and other things. Okay, the such evidences. For instance, various stone tools or pottery, right? Now, the second phase is the proto-history, for which we do have the written sources along with the archaeological sources, but we don't know how to understand those written sources. For instance, the Harappan civilization or the Indus Valley Civilization. We do have the Indus seals, but we don't know what is actually written on them. So, we are yet to know the exact meaning, and then comes the historical phase. From when we have concrete historical evidences in literary form. Right. So, these are the basic phases of history. Now, when we are talking about this prehistorical phase, as I told, stone tools are a very important part, right? So, based on the nature of the stone tools, we usually divide the prehistoric phase in certain divisions, right? So, the first one is Paleolithic period. This is the earliest phase of human history. Okay, this period itself is divided into three phases based on the nature of the stone tools themselves, like the lower Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic and upper Paleolithic. Now, then comes the Mesolithic, then comes the Neolithic, then we are having a transition from stone to metal, and the first metal we used was the copper, and that phase is known as Chalcolithic, and from copper and bronze we shifted towards the Iron Age. Okay. Now, you might wonder what does this terms mean. So, like lithic, this phrase means stone or stone related, right? Lithic means stone or stone related. Now, these are mainly Latin terms: Paleo, Meso, Neo, Chalco. Paleo means old or the ancient or from antiquity. So from the name itself you can understand it is the earliest phase or earliest period of getting the stone tools. This is the Paleolithic phase. Then Meso means the middle. So we have some kind of updated tools from the Paleolithic period here, but that too was not at all very sharp. So this is the Mesolithic period. From Mesolithic we shift towards the Neolithic. Now Neolithic means new, new. So from this period we do have innovative and sharp stone objects and tools, and from Neolithic period the actual progress, if we can say in that sense, the actual progress of the human civilization began. The civilization in its current sense, in sense of progression, the civilization of human beings started from this phase itself. Although the entire phases are talking and telling about certain progresses, but the current meaning of civilization can be linked since this period. Okay, so from Neolithic we can have various metals, like we already said. Copper was the first metal which was used by human beings. So chalco means copper related. Okay, and along with copper we also have certain usage of bronze here. Okay, and from bronze we gradually shifted towards iron. Okay, so in today's lecture we will discuss about this Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic and Chalcolithic phase. Okay, so let's start. Now if we look at some basic facts, the prehistory or the prehistoric phase historically can be traced since the arrival of hominins. Hominins are the earliest kind of humans. Okay, the earliest kind of humans were known as hominins. 3.3 million years ago we had them, and between the period of having hominins and the invention of writing system, the period is called the prehistory, right? So if one point is the hominins and another point is the invention of writing system, this historical phase is called the prehistory. Okay, and as we said, no written evidences, only archaeological, geological, paleontological and other sources like geographical sources can be there. Okay, now if we look at the prehistory in the India and Indian subcontinent, the earliest discovery was made by Dr. Primrose. He discovered some stone knives and arrowheads in Karnataka. Currently the Raichur, you know the Raichur Doab, the place is called Lingusugur. Okay, in 1842. So this was a very crucial discovery. Along with it, there was another very famous botanist. He was Robert Bruce Foote, who discovered probably the earliest Paleolithic tool, the Pallavaram hand axe. Okay, so in that sense, Dr. Robert Bruce Foote is called the father of Indian prehistory. Okay, because of his extensive studies. He has written a number of books on Indian prehistory, right? So let us look at a picture of those tools. Now you can see on the left hand there is a cleaver. Cleaver means a chopper kind of tool, okay, used to chop things. And this is the hand axe, the Pallavaram hand axe. So these two were discovered by Robert Bruce Foote. You can see this was discovered from Atirampakkam and this was from Pallavaram. Okay. So apart from that, there are certain important discoveries, we need to look at them. So the earliest human skeletons, who are anthropologically known as Homo habilis, those skeletons can be found in the salt range in Pakistan and in India, Shivaliks. Okay. So the dates, now in this chapter, the dates which we will discuss are some general timelines, because there has been a huge debate regarding the exact dates. Okay, because since there is no concrete literary evidence, we only have to depend upon the archaeological evidences whose datings are a bit controversial and not very unanimous among the scholars, right? So the skeletons of those Homo habilis are debated to be as old as 2 million years, right? And this is very important. In 1982, Dr. Arun Sonakia and his team discovered the first hominid. Hominid means perhaps the first kind of modern human being. He was known as Homo erectus. That fossil was found in the Narmada Valley. Okay. So now let us understand what do we mean by the Paleolithic age. Now, as I already said, the Paleo means the ancient and Lithic means stone or stone related. So the ancient or the old Stone Age, you can also remember it by this way. The old Stone Age, Paleolithic age means. In this phase, we didn't know about the agriculture or use of fire or any kind of settlements, let alone the writing system. We didn't know even how to do the basic agricultures. So in this phase, human beings were hunters and food gatherers. They simply hunted the animals and gathers fruits and other foods and other items. Okay. So the term in 1865, the famous archaeologist John Lubbock introduced this term. Okay. Now, geologically it comes under the Pleistocene period. Pleistocene period, if you can't remember it, simply relate it with the Ice Age. Okay. In the core periods of the Ice Age, the earliest phases of Paleolithic age began. Okay. Now, if we look at the spread of these evidences, we can see that except certain places in entire India, we can have the evidences like the alluvial plains of river Indus and the Ganga. We can't find them in southern Tamil Nadu and the western Ghats. Except these places, practically every other part of India has the evidences of this Paleolithic Stone Age. Okay. Now, in this period, the species which lived was known as Homo erectus. Okay. Anthropologically, they belong to the Negrito race who lived in open air, who were generally located near the river sources or water sources, and used to live in the caves and rock shelters to save themselves from natural calamities as well as from the animals. Okay. Now, this is the phase when the dogs were domesticated. Okay. The first animal which was domesticated by the humans were the dogs. Now, in this period, as we have discussed already, there was no knowledge of agriculture or house building or pottery or even metals. Okay. Even fire was unknown then. So, what kind of tools were used then? Mainly rough stone tools which were unpolished and undressed. Unpolished and undressed because they were literally have no sense of any technology or invention. They just use them to save themselves from animals in order to self-defense. Okay, in order to defend themselves, they use those stone tools. So, what were some examples? Hand axes, choppers and cleavers, blades, burins and scrapers. Okay. And in India, most of the stone tools were made from quartzite. Therefore, we often call the Paleolithic men as quartzite men in the Indian subcontinent. Okay. So, these are some basic facts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, regarding the nature of the stone tools, we usually divide the Paleolithic period into three phases for our better understanding. Okay, the first is the lower Paleolithic or early Paleolithic, then comes the middle, and it was followed by the upper Paleolithic. Okay, you can see the general timelines from 6 lakh to 1,50,000 before Common Era was the period of early Paleolithic. Between 1,50,000 and 3,500 before Common Era was the middle Paleolithic era, and between 3,500 and 35,000 and 10,000 before Common Era was the upper Paleolithic period. Okay. So, let us look at these phases distinctively. Now, if we look at the early or lower Paleolithic, as I have mentioned, most parts of the ice age was covered. Okay. The site of Bori, which is in Maharashtra, it is the earliest Paleolithic site which is discovered till now. We are not certain about it, but we assume it to be the earliest. Okay, so let us have a look in the map. So you can see Bori. It is the earliest Paleolithic site in India. You can see it is located in the western side. Okay. Now, if we look at the nature and example of the stone tools, they were rough and heavy. They were made of quartzite and hand axe, chopper and cleavers. What were the usages? For digging, chopping and skinning, right? Now, apart from Bori, there are certain other places where we can found the evidences, like now it is in Pakistan, the Sohan River Valley, in Kashmir, in Rajasthan, the Thor Desert, especially Didwana, and the Hiran Valley of Gujarat. Also, the rock shelters of Bhimbetka provide certain evidences of early Paleolithic periods, and the Belan Valley of Uttar Pradesh. Okay, so let us give a look in the map. So whenever you are studying these Stone Age phases, try to study it along with the maps, so it will be easier for you to locate the sites, which will help you in understanding the geographical and historical pattern. Okay, now it's Didwana. Okay, now Belan Valley will cover this phase. Apart from them, now Sohan Valley is in Pakistan. What were the other one? Okay, Bhimbetka and Hiran Valley. Now, Bhimbetka you can look here. Okay, probably the Hiran Valley is not given in this map. No problem. Now let us look at the features of the Middle Paleolithic period. Now, as you have seen, the tools in the lower Paleolithic were heavy and rough. Now, the difference initially came in form of the stone tools. They became smaller and lighter, and now they were carefully shaped and prepared in advance. So that means the people were starting to have a basic sense of technology or self-defense, right? So they are now advanced, they are now became familiar with the environment, they became familiar with the situation, and therefore they started making the tools according to the situation. Okay, now the stone tools were made of flakes, mainly scrapers, border, points and blade like. So this period marked sharpening of tools. Also the hand axe is increased. Now the evidences of this phase is found in the Swan, Narmada and Tungabhadra valleys, the Potawar plateau and the Sanghao cave in Peshawar. Okay, the most prominent site is Nevasa in Maharashtra. Now, it was discovered by a famous archaeologist as well as an anthropologist. His name was Hasmukh Dhiraj Lal Sankalia. He was a pioneer in the study of the prehistory of India. Okay, so he was very famous and he discovered this Nevasa site. Okay, so this was the most important site of the Middle Paleolithic period. So let us try to find them in the map. Here you can see the Nevasa site discovered by Sankalia. Okay, this is very important, try to remember it. So we have discussed about Bori, the Paleolithic, the early Paleolithic. Nevasa is the Middle Paleolithic. Okay, remember these two names. These are very important. Now let us look at the features of the Upper Paleolithic period. Now we are having a distinct innovation in the types of tools and in terms of technology. Now we are having parallel sided blades. So we are having stone tools like this, a blade like thing, which are double edged. Prior to this period, they were either single edged or they were not at all edged. But since this period, we will start having the parallel side double edged blades. Apart from these, burins, scrapers and bone made tools are also there. Now the cluster of the Upper Paleolithic evidences can be found in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, mainly the South Indian phases, central Madhya Pradesh, the southern parts of Uttar Pradesh, and especially in the Choto Nagpur plateau. Now the bone tools were found only in the cave sites like the Kurnul and Muchatla Chintamani Gavi. Okay. Apart from that, ostrich eggshell and stone beads and shells, they are found in Andhra Pradesh and Patna. This period marked the arrival of the Homo sapiens, the modern human. Okay. They appeared at the end, and this shows that perhaps it marked an basic increase in the cognitive capability. Cognitive capability means the ability to think and comprehend events and a basic sense of language. So from this perspective, the Upper Paleolithic phase is very important because the basic cognitive abilities started to increase. Okay. And with the coming of the Upper Paleolithic, the Ice Age started to end. And with the end of the Ice Age, the climate started becoming humid. It started becoming warmer, which gave a perfect base to start the civilization. Okay, so this point of history is very important, this Upper Paleolithic period. Okay, so let us see these sites in the map. Now you can see Patne here, Patne. The Chotanagpur plateau here. Apart from that, there are sites like the Kurnool and others are can found here. Okay, in this place you can find the Muchatla, Chintamani Gavi and Kurnool. Okay, so these sites are very important. Now let us move to the Mesolithic period, right? Now the Mesolithic period, Meso means middle and Lithic you know, so we can call it the Middle Stone Age, right? The term, the technical term was used by Hodder Westrom. The year was 1866. So as we have already discussed, it denotes the period between the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. Now geologically it belongs to the Holocene era. Now it is a remarkable feature that the size of the tools started to reduce. Therefore, this reduction and the tools became microliths, small liths, stone tools, microliths. Okay, so how did they do? You can visibly see them, right? In respect of the Paleolithic tools, the sizes started decreasing significantly, which marked that they became sharper, they became more edged, which proved that the becoming more effective. Okay, they are becoming more effective to hunt or to snatch something or to hatch something, right? So this is the importance of the microliths. Now they were usually made of the semi-crystal things like silica, chalcedony, chert. These are various kinds of rock metals. Okay. Now microliths were working as dual tools. Usually they were used as tools themselves, as well as along with some wood or bone handles, they were used as either arrowheads or spearheads, right? Also they were used as sickles. So it gave them a much edgy point which helped to hunt small animals or birds, right? Now some very finely crafted bangles have been found from the Anantapur and Kudappa district of South India. The biggest Mesolithic site in India was Rajasthan. Apart from them, we found various evidences of animal domestication from the Adamgarh site of Madhya Pradesh. Bone artifacts can be found in Mahadaha. Also, a couple burial, a burial which consists of a male and a female, can be in a single funeral body, they can be in a single coffin, they can be found in Mahadaha. Apart from them, in West Bengal, Birbhanpur, which is currently Durgapur, Langanj in Gujarat, Chotanagpur, Tinel of Tamil Nadu, Sarai Nahara in Pratapgarh. There are important Mesolithic sites, and obviously we must remember the Kaimur Hills, which were very famous for the Mesolithic pottery, right? So we are starting to have potteries from this period onwards. Okay. So let us look at the map now. Now, Bagor, this is Bagor, this is Langanj, this is Birbhanpur, right? Adamgarh, Sarai Nahar, Mahadaha. Okay. Now this is the site Malanganj where the couple burial is found. Okay. So remember this Bagor, this site, the largest Mesolithic site in India. It is located in Rajasthan, right? Okay. So let us look at some basic features of the Mesolithic period. Now, the Mesolithic people lived in semi-permanent settlements. Okay. So basically they lived in caves and open grounds. They were still dependent on hunting and gathering. Now also fishing was there. And in the later phases of the Mesolithic period, animal domestication and plant cultivation also emerged. Now plant cultivation leads to some kind of pre-agricultural features, right? This is the period from when we have started using fire and used fire to roast the foods, basically the hunted animals and the other items. Also, the rock arts which are very popular, especially the Bhimbetka rock arts, which we have already discussed in our sources. The rock art is actually emerged since this period. Okay. Now in 1857, the year of the Great Revolt, I hope you know this. In the same year, the first rock painting was discovered at Sohagi Ghat. It is in the Kaimur Hills. Now more than 150 sites have been discovered, mostly around the central India. We know Bhimbetka, apart from it, Kharwar, Jaora. In Odisha, there are two significant sites, Sambalpur and Sundargarh, and Kerala's Ezuthu Guha. Okay. Now, what were the themes of this rock art, right? So as we have discussed, these rock arts basically used as some kind of manifestation, right? Like most of the arts depicted hunting scenes, which showed that it was some kind of ritual for the ancient people that if they draw the hunting scenes, it will be easier for them to hunt the prey, right? Also, it might have certain religious significances. Also, there are gender and labor division, those were depicted in the arts, okay. And very importantly, no snakes are depicted in those arts. Most other animals were depicted, but no snakes. Remember it. No snakes. Now, this is the famous Bhimbetka cave paintings. It is in Madhya Pradesh. You can see that probably this person is the leader of the group. He is leading these people. Some are dancing or some are in front of an animal. They have covered it on their way to hunt the animal, right? So they are fascinating paintings. Now let us come to the Neolithic period. As we are already aware, Neo means new, Lithic means stone. So basically it means the new stone age. This is a very significant phase. This was the transition phase, okay. We can call it the first transition from hunter gatherers to fruit producers. So we can understand that we have already learned agriculture from this period onward. So when we are able to do the agrarian practices, we no longer need to gather foods because we are able to produce them. So we no longer need to wander here and there in order to hunt animals and also in order to save ourselves from being hunted by bigger animals. So agriculture gradually lead towards a settled living, right? And with this settled living, with these settlements, the actual civilization started, right? This is the transition. It marked the initiation of the civilization of the human beings, right? Now if we look at the Neolithic period, polished, picked and ground stone tools. Now celts were used to make polished hand axes. Apart from that, needles, scrapers, arrowheads, pendants, bangles and earrings. So you can easily understand the complexities of technology were increasing. Complexity was increasing. Also the sharp objects like needles, sharp arrowheads, sharpness were increasing. So technical innovation was on its full rise, right? Also some kind of aestheticness was becoming popular. That's why pendants, bangles, earrings were there, right? So these sharp and polished tools helped to cultivate the soil, which on their part made the agricultural practices prevalent and easier. The foremost cultivated things were ragi, kulathi or horse gram, and various fruits. Okay. Apart from this, animal domestication began at its fullest. Cattle, sheep, goats, they were domesticated along with dogs, right? Now, with the features, a complete settled agricultural ecosystem emerged, right? A settled agricultural ecosystem emerged with this domestication and cultivation. Also, this period was marked by the invention of pottery. Initially it was man-made, then came the potter's wheel. It was discovered only in this period, right? Now, what were the prevalent potteries? Black burnished ware, grey ware, and matte impressed ware. Okay, remember them. Black burnished ware, grey ware, matte impressed ware. So basically, this is the basic features of the Neolithic period. Okay. Now, there is a debate among historians that was this period a wonder or it gradually led a destructive decision for human being. But this is a statement made from a current standpoint, like if this has been the historical events, we are standing here in this present. Now we are judging according to our deeds, and we are criticizing that if we have not made the technological advancements, we would not end up where we are today now. So if that was not happened, the various problems like pollution, overcrowded, overpopulation, over urbanization, that wouldn't have come at all. But again, this is a very generalist statement. Indeed, this period was a revolution. Like, what does it mean? Revolution means what? Revolution means shifting of a paradigm. Now, paradigm means a given status quo, right? Now, prior to the Neolithic phase, humans were hunters and gatherers. They wandered from places to places. Now, in the Neolithic period, certain things like agriculture, use of fire, and fuller use of pottery. These things together gave the settled community. So this shifted the entire paradigm, the entire lifestyle, the entire living style, the entire consumption style, the entire cultural style, all were shifted. This is what a revolution does, right? So, a very famous archaeologist, Gordon Childe, has remarked that the Neolithic phase was no less than a revolution. That's why he called this phase itself was a revolution. Okay. As we have said, Gordon Childe called this a revolution. Why? Because as we the paradigm shifter. It marked a paradigm shift in human history. Human history, right? So, such transformations in the socio-economic life of human beings affected the human life for ever, right? Now, with the settled agricultural practices, self-sufficient village communities emerged. They started living in huts made of muds and reeds. They were rectangular and circular. Okay. Boats were started made. Boat making became important because most of the village communities were situated along a village along a river. So boats became very important. Cotton spinning was started, and along with it wool and cloth weaving also started. So particular sense of dressing and fashion in not in today's term, in a basic term, in a more basic term, a basic aesthetic sense was started to grow, right? And apart from that, one very important thing, the division of labor came. Now labor, the concept of labor was introduced. It was based on age and sex, right? Like when settled agriculture came, now the men were mainly doing the agricultural stuffs. The females started staying in the home. They took care of the young children, the young progenies, and they were mainly doing the household chores. Now, what were the household chores? The fruits which they eat, they started planting the seeds alongside the huts. From there, various newer trees started growing, which eventually led to another kind of plantation, tree plantation. Okay. So they were engaged in these activities, and the hardcore agricultural practices started centering around men. Okay. So, and along with these, the concept of leaders and subordinates also came, and further labor divisions were made, right? So society become complex, and it was just the beginning. And also with continuous cognitive development, languages started developing from this age only. Okay. Now there are particular types of regional variations in the Neolithic period. Let us see them. The first one was the northwestern. Okay, so if we try to draw an Indian map here, So first one was this northwestern. So Mehergarh was the earliest northwestern site. It was dated around 7000 before Common Era. Okay, it even preceded the Indus Valley Civilization. We have already discussed it in the archaeological sources. So Mehergarh. Another was Kashmir, Burzahom, Gufkral. Okay, Burzahom was particularly popular for a dog burial. Okay, and Burzahom was also the UNESCO World Heritage Site for having the peat dwellings. Why it had the peat dwellings? To escape the cold weathers. Okay, these sites were contemporary of the Indus Valley Civilization. Now, what is the third one? It is the central India, the Ganga Valley. Now, the most prominent signifier was the cord mark pottery. Okay, so Koldiva, Chiran, Mahagara. Okay, Mahagara records the earliest evidence of the rice cultivation in the whole world. It is very important. Now we will come to the eastern zone. Mainly it was centered around West Bengal and Bihar. These places have affinities with East and Southeast Asian Neolithic complexes. Okay, so we can have a link here. Now, in South India, it was centered around these places: Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu. Okay, one peculiar feature was in the South India, the settlements have a ash mound in center. These ash mounds probably belong to some chief or chieftains of a particular kin group or a particular group. To revere the person, all the settlements was situated with having the ash mound or the burial, the funeral, the burial ground or of that person in the center. Okay, and the last one is the northeastern India. It was the most late phase of Neolithic culture, belonging only to 2500 to 1500 before Common Era. Okay, so as I was talking about the Burzahom, you can see the burial of the dog. Okay, it is very famous. As I mentioned, in 2015 it was the UNESCO World Heritage Site for peat dwellings and peat burial, which were unique in India. Only in Burzahom you can find this. Apart from Burzahom, no other sites in India record such kind of burials. Okay. Now let us look at some important Neolithic sites. Here Burzahom, Mehergarh, the earliest. Chirant. This is one important, Daujali Hading in north east. Now there has been a cluster of sites, among them Brahmagiri, Hallur, Nagarjun Konda, Payampalli, they are very important. Okay. Now we are going towards more advanced stages, the Chalcolithic age. Now, if we try to give it a general timeline, it flourished between 3000 and 500 before Common Era. As I mentioned at the starting of our lecture, chalco means copper or copper related. So, along with stones, now human beings started using the copper. Okay, it is the first metal to be used by human. And apart from copper, we also use bronze, because copper was mixed with tin. Right. So, this period marked the use of metals with stones. Okay. Now, technologically we can say that it was pre-Harappan, but in some sites it was pre-Harappan, in some cases it collided with the Harappan, and in some cases this period flourished after the Harappan. Okay. So, we are not very certain about the unanimity of this age, as how it was spread in the Indian subcontinent. So, we usually say it was contemporaneous with the Harappan civilization, right. So, in this phase copper was heavily used, right, and after this age we will shift to the bronze age, right. Now, the very interesting features of the Chalcolithic period. Now, we have already seen that agriculture was there, cattle rearing was there. Now, among the chief agrarian products was wheat, rice, bajra and various pulses. In the eastern part of the India, fish and rice became popular, and the slash burn, or which is commonly known as the jhum cultivation, was followed by the people. However, it is very important, till this period no plough or hoe has been found. Okay, we will see that it will be found during the Harappan period, okay, which we will see in the next lecture. However, one important fact is the cluster of the Chalcolithic sites have been in the black soil, which was very fertile to produce cotton. Okay. Now, in this period, the domestication of cows, sheep, goats, pigs, buffaloes, it was completed, and they were mostly domesticated for foods. Hardly they were used for dairy products, hardly. And also deer, they were hunted. Okay. Now, potteries became very important. Black and red pottery and ochre colored pottery. These are the two principal types of pottery which mark the Chalcolithic lifestyle. Now, settlements were still rural. Burned bricks were yet to come. Raw bricks were used. Now, This period already started showing social inequalities, like the chiefs lived in the rectangular houses or huts and the subordinates lived in rounded huts. Okay, and also we have certain religious perspectives here. We have started having small clay images of the earth goddesses or the mother goddesses. We usually denote them as the primeval mother goddess. Okay, so the concept of having God as the mother nature, the conception was getting shape from this phase. We will have much more evidences of the mother goddess images in the Harappan civilization itself. Okay, when we will see them. Apart from that, ornaments and decorations were there. As I say, aesthetic sense was gradually developing. So shell and bone made ornaments, combs made of bone, animal bones, they have been found. Fashion, semi precious stones, quartz, steatite, carnelian were there. Now it is one important thing, infant mortality was very high. In the sites of western Maharashtra, children burials have been in a large number. Okay, and the copper source. What was the source of the copper? The copper mine of Rajasthan, the Khetri mines. Okay, and in Uttarakhand, the Almora. These two were the copper sources. Okay. Now, largest copper reserve is found in Gungeria, which is in Madhya Pradesh. As you can see, 424 pieces of copper objects and 102 thin sheets of silver. Silver was also found from this site. Kilts, harpoons, swords, rings, and anthropomorphs. So, various kinds of images and tools have been found, right? So, you can see in this image the ochre colored pottery. Can see the intricate designs here. These designs marked certain religious as well as spiritual meanings. Okay. Now, among these things, one particular type of pottery is very important. That is the Nal pottery. Now, Nal is a place which is in Balochistan. Okay. There was a large scale of excavation in 1925, from where various types of pots, jars and bowls have been discovered. The main feature of this pottery is it was polychromatic. Okay, it means multiple colors together have been used in this pottery. You can see. You can see the very novel size. Okay. So it is from Balochistan, and you can see the very beautiful designs of two fishes, various kinds of fishes and other patterns of designs. Look at the patterns. It's like a maze, right? So now if we look at certain important Chalcolithic cultures, one is the Rajasthan's Ahar culture or the Banas Valley culture. What are the important sites? The Banas Valley itself, Gilund and Udaipur. Second is the Madhya Pradesh cluster. It is known as the Kayatha culture, named after Kayatha, which is in Chambal. Okay. Third is also in Madhya Pradesh. It's the Malwa culture. You can point the timelines. Now, Malwa is a site where most number of Chalcolithic potteries have been discovered. Okay, Malwa, Navdatoli, these belong to the Malwa culture. Now, for the western part, the Jorwe culture. Jorwe, Inamgao, Chandoli. Here the largest site is Daimabad. Okay, and apart from these distinct cultures, Bihar, West Bengal and Nevasa also have the Chalcolithic sites. Okay, and we have to remember that this Nevasa site is not at all linked with the Harappan site. It is a non-Harappan site. Okay, so if we try to locate them in the map, it will be easier for us to understand the pattern of distribution. Okay, so look, Ahar, Gilund, Kayatha, Navdatoli, Jorwe, Nevasa, Inamgao, right? Daimabad is also here. Okay, so you can have a idea that it was chiefly clustered around the central and western part of India. Okay, and you will see that the Indus Valley was also clustered around this area only. Okay, so there is a common concept among scholars that these cultures gradually led to the Harappan setting. Okay, so there is a concept among historians that there has been a gradual transition from the Chalcolithic to the Harappan period. Okay, the Harappa represented very advanced level of Chalcolithic civilization, but there were certain differences, like the Chalcolithic culture was rural, whereas the Harappan culture was completely urban, mostly urban. And we can have the transition from copper to bronze, and the Chalcolithic people mostly lived near hilly lands or rivers, whereas the Harappan people were mostly urban who lived on the production from the flat plains of the Indus Valley. Okay, so these were certain basic differences which actually marked a gradual shift, a gradual transition from the Chalcolithic to the Bronze Age civilization. Okay, and how that transition took place we will look at in the next lecture on the Harappa. So thank you, we will see you in the next lecture.